Hello. This is it's like a mashup, right? It's like a mashup between maybe YouTube and my podcast, right? This is like something that I do just to get people to listen to my podcast, of course. Because that is already out there and it's usually 1 hour episodes every week. And there's already, I don't know, 150 online. I started in 2021, I think. And oh, right, this is actually another one of stories of my life. I didn't realize that. I thought I was doing some kind of spiritual practices or right. Sometimes I get a bit confused of where this is going. Sometimes I set something up and I start and I don't really quite know what's it going to be in the end. But by now I'm fairly certain that when I start, I'm going to have something in the end. And now I think looking at this picture, I still have to explain art to people, right? Because people actually don't know what art is. And that's why I think it takes people so long to figure out that I've actually something to say on here. It's incredible how slowly people are these days because they are basically being flooded with a tsunami of bullshit from people that call themselves yoga teachers because they know how to do a certain pose. But yoga isn't about learning how to just position your body. Yoga is an entire way of life. And when I look online for yoga teachers, I see people that have no idea what yoga is about. That's how I feel. I cannot say I know an awful lot about yoga, but I see what it's not by looking at it and seeing people in incredibly tight pants. Right? I can look at a person and I see how they position themselves, and you can basically see how they position their body, and that's already right to show like, oh, I'm super sexy. It's actually not what I wanted to talk about, but it's just an introduction to whatever else I'm going to get to. Because for me, when I look at people doing yoga, right, there are few people where I have the feeling, okay, I think they're genuine. But 90% of the people out there are just bullshit because they're just copies of other people. They're just trying to make themselves look like, hey, that's me, but it's not. It's somebody else, and all you do is copy that person. But you have to actually think for yourself, and this is where the transition comes in to this image, because this image is called "A Night Owl Has No Rhythm." And that's what it means. Because what does an owl do? Right? It has a rhythm, but not like most people would define a rhythm, right? For some people, a rhythm is to get up at 7 in the clock every morning, right? Whether it's winter or summer, doesn't matter. You have to get up at 7. And then you go and you work, right? Every day you get up at the same time. And on weekends you sleep in. Well, you could call that a rhythm, but it's quite a shit rhythm because it is unnatural for somebody to maybe wake up every day at 7. And I can see when I tried that, I've tried that for, well, all the time that I was forced to go to school, right? Or show up to work somewhere. Well, that was before I said, I want to be self-employed because I hated working for other people. And so I had to figure it out. What's my rhythm? Well, today I slept until 1. But I was also awake until 4 or 5 in the morning. And then I get up at 1. And then I figure it out, right? Every day is different. Today, to me, seems a bit easier. Because the moment I got up, the first thing I wanted to do was create a song. And so I created a song, and I already had a vision of what kind of video to put into it. And it was then, in the end, the second song of Solar Eclipse, which is my newest album. And so it's running for my life, that song that I created. So I had to work on the video, and then I created the cover art for the album, right? And also created another song still. See, and that's now, I know what to do. This is my sadhana. This is part of my yoga. Being creative and figuring it out for myself. That means I sometimes look at people doing yoga, and whether I like what they're doing or not, right? If I like it, I take what they give. If I don't like it, well, I still get something out of it because I'll just do it my own way. I mean, I'll do it my own way anyway. But if I see somebody doing yoga online, and there's something I don't like about the way I'm doing it, I'm not going to copy that and pretend that's me. No, I'm going to take what I like and then add myself to it and then do it my own way. So I also don't really watch entire videos. I also don't listen to what people say in there. That's how I do it. I don't want all these explanations. When I buy an electronic device, for instance, I don't look at the manual. I never do that. I only do it if I'm really stuck. If I can't figure it out for myself how a device works, I'll look at the manual or I'll look it up at the internet. But until that point where I'm so frustrated that I say I need help now, I'm just doing it by myself. To figure it out, so I first allow myself to get an overview of my abilities, of what I can do with this thing. It's like you pick up a Rubik's Cube, and you pick it up and you put it down, and you pick it up, and then you try it. You try it for a couple of days, you try it, and then you realize that's not gonna work. Because for some reason my mind doesn't work that way, so I look up the instruction manual, and then I just learn these algorithms until I can do it without looking at the instruction manual. So people were trying to tell me, you have to get up every day at 7. Yeah? And then you get up and you stagger to the coffee machine and you press a button and then the coffee pours out. That's already where I leave you. Because that's for me, again, the easy way. You want a quick fix. You just press that coffee button and it comes out. No. If I want to drink coffee, I'll make it myself. I'll buy a hand grinder, like one of these old coffee grinders, these coffee mills that are usually made out of wood and like in a cubic form. Then you have this kind of latch on top and you put coffee inside and then you start grinding it in a circular motion. This is meditation for me. That's what most people don't understand because they're so busy, trying to earn money that they never take the time to make a coffee. Like properly make it. And then just drink 1 cup. I mean, take a French press, make a whole liter if you really want to drink coffee. For me, if I drink coffee every day, I get really angry and really acidic. I cannot imagine that it's different for other people. I think it's with everybody like this. Most people just ignore it. Most people just ignore all that anger. And I think there's a lot of reasons why people are angry. One reason is probably the kind of rhythm that they force themselves into. It's unnatural, right? I like to be up at night because it's quiet, and then I like to get up a bit later in the day because that also means I have less time with people that are awake. I mean, that sounds a bit ridiculous, but to me, especially at the moment, I had to adapt to whoever it is I'm living with. I had to adapt to that because they make noises. I don't like that, right? I mean, that sounds like, but that's how it is. I'm a shy pooper. I don't like to shit when people are around me. I want to know that nobody can hear me. I hate it if somebody's next to me when I'm taking a shit. And that's the same thing with being creative. What I really want to have is my own cabin somewhere where nobody can bother me, where I can be creative without anybody making a sound. Because that's what I really, really want. And that's where I can have my own rhythm, where I can get up whenever I want to, because the way I see it now, when I get up too late, people give me weird looks, or, they think I'm sleeping all the time. It's none of their business what I'm doing. But everybody tries to make it your business by trying to force you into doing the same thing as everybody else. And just yesterday or this night, it was more or less, I watched this movie, Strange World, and there were a lot of valuable lessons. First of all, this father-son relationship made me incredibly angry. Because why do sons always think they have to be friends with their fathers? Why isn't it enough that the father does something, whatever he wants, and the son chooses for himself? Why do fathers want to push their sons into doing what they have done? And why do sons think they have to live up to that expectation? And that's something that made me angry because, I've tried it and I also felt it, like this was being sent to me by my father. He always wanted that I do what he does, and even recently he tried to get me to do something that he does again, and I just say no now. But there are these unspoken expectations, right? If you sleep until 2 on a weekend, people will give you a look that says you're lazy, even if it's the weekend. Or if you are sick, for instance, right, and you don't want to leave the house, and you're too weak, people give you a look, oh, you should go outside. No, you shouldn't do anything unless you feel like it. And that's when I say a night owl has no rhythm. It has a rhythm, but this rhythm has nothing to do with what we consider to be time. Because time has nothing to do with clocks. Because as it is being said in the Last Unicorn, a clock isn't time, a clock is just, right, like wheels and mechanics working. So we created clocks and we think that's time, and now we think we can manage it. Well, we do try to manage it. And that's why we're always running out of time. We never have enough time to do anything because we're always busy looking at the time. But that's not time what we're looking at, it's just a watch. Right? So I have started to live more according to my feeling, my inner compass, my intuition. And that guides me through the day. So I wake up and then I choose what I want to do. I pick something and then I do it. And sometimes I'm like drawn apart. Do I want to eat now or do I not want to eat now? Right now I don't really want to eat because I feel like it's actually making me lazy. So I'm trying to eat a bit less. I have to see, right? If I'm getting really annoyed, then maybe I'll eat something. Or maybe I'll stretch instead. Because maybe I've been overeating quite a bit. But that's also because figuring out your own rhythm is quite self-destructive. And I say that because you actually have to destroy a part in yourself that wants to have this kind of rhythm that everybody else has. Because that's where you feel safe and secure. So you basically have to destroy or kill that part in yourself by not feeding it anymore. So if you stop feeding habits or behavior patterns by investing time into them, or energy, because time is energy, then they will wither away and they will die. And these parts, they are reluctant to go. Why ever, right? So it takes time, which is energy, which is focus, which is consciousness, which is awareness, right? It takes all these things to figure out what your rhythm is. Some people like to get up with the sun every day, and they like to go to bed right when it gets dark. I like to be up in the dark hours, because that's for me when things get a bit interesting. And I don't really miss it. I mean, right now it's also, it's like winter, so it's quite cold. So, I'm also adapting to that. In summer, I spend hours outside, but when it's cold and wet, why should I do that? I mean, I could, but I also could stay inside, because that's the kind of world that we live in now. And if I want to be creative, it's harder if I'm outside when it's cold, because then I want to be where it's warm and I have to focus on staying warm. Now I'm inside, it's a bit easier. Anyway, I think that's roughly what I wanted to say. It's just to get you some ideas, stories of my life. I had to figure it out for myself. And now I feel like I'm getting closer to feel like, it has sunk in. The work I've been putting into myself to figure it out by myself and for myself, without asking other people for their opinion anymore. Because to ask people for their opinion that have no idea what they're talking about, and that basically just say the things that they think are expected of them to say. You see where I'm going with this? So I was always looking at other people and asking their opinion. Oh, how much do you sleep? And then they tell you, so, oh, you have to sleep more, or I think you don't sleep enough. Usually when they say stuff like this to you, it's projection. It's like when you want to go outside and, somebody asks you, probably your mother, oh, isn't it too cold? Like, you've been walking, I'm talking about me now, of course, 12 years or longer. I've been doing this, going barefoot in cold weather, and she's still trying that. What I then say to her now is, I'm not even going to respond to that anymore, because you're just stuck in parenting me, and you're reluctant to see that I'm not who you think I am. Right? So that's also a kind of rhythm, a behavioral rhythm, right? It's like you do something and somebody responds to it, right? You want to work, you think you have to do it a certain way. You want to sleep, you want to be awake, and you think you have to do it a certain way. Well, you have to do it in the way that you feel like doing it, and then it will become natural over time, and you will find your own rhythm. And that's when I make music. Like, there is a kind of a rhythm, but not really. It's like, right? So it's like, if you take, for instance, nature. You have seasons, right? It's like hot and cold, right? That's always the sinus wave, right? It's a sinus wave. And then you have the moon, it's full and it's new, right? Full, a new moon. And then you have the seasons, right? That's already two basically sinus waves of nature. And then you have daily patterns, you have light and darkness. That's another sinus wave. And then you can probably take the month, whatever, right? The daily changes and all that kind of stuff. And if you take that all together, right, then you have a rhythm. Over a long period of time, there is a rhythm, there's a pattern. But then you add life into it. that means suddenly there comes a... You see? And suddenly there comes a person walking around, like, chuk, 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 right? So it is a rhythm, but it's kind of chaotic. But at the same time, it's perfect exactly as it is. And that's what I'm trying to express with my music, right? I don't like most music that I listen to overly much, especially stuff from the radio, because it's all the same. It's all like computer generated, exactly like these, beats per minute, or beats per second, who cares? Anyway, take this as a token, listen to it, learn from it, do something with it that is your own.